One might have thought that the spectacle of a septuagenarian autocrat whimpering for international validation would possess at minimum the virtue of pathos. Yet when the object of our consideration is a man who can neither pronounce Azerbaijan, rendering it with sublime illiteracy as Azerbaijan, nor remember which countries he has supposedly rescued from mutual annihilation, we find ourselves confronting not tragedy, but the most vulgar farce. The recent awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize to Maria Corina Machado, that genuinely courageous opponent of Venezuelan tyranny, has provoked from the White House a tantrum so spectacular in its narcissistic injury that one almost feels embarrassment on behalf of the Republic. Here is the leader of the free world, or what remains of it, claiming with straight face that the laureate telephoned him personally to declare she was accepting the prize on his behalf, as he really deserved it. This fabrication is so transparently pathetic, so desperately needy, that even the most servile courtiers in his administration must have winced. But let us examine, with the clinical detachment one might bring to a particularly florid case of megalomania, the foundation upon which this Nobel pretension rests. Trump claims to have ended 7 wars, a number that fluctuates depending on his audience and his capacity to remember his previous lies. Among these phantom victories, we find conflicts that were never resolved. Cambodia and Thailand continue to exchange accusations of ceasefire violations, wars that never existed. Albania and Azerbaijan, having never shared a border, found it remarkably difficult to wage war upon one another, and peace agreements so fragile that neither party has bothered to ratify them. The Armenia-Azerbaijan Accord, which Trump struggles to articulate without geographical dyslexia, remains unsigned. The leaders of both nations, having initialed a preliminary agreement at the White House, departed with the fundamental issues unresolved. Azerbaijan continues to demand constitutional changes from Armenia that would almost certainly be rejected by Armenian voters. This is not peace, it is a photo opportunity masquerading as diplomacy, a Potemkin village of international relations, erected for the exclusive benefit of one man's ego. Consider the grotesque irony. While Trump bellows about his peacemaking prowess, he deploys the National Guard against American citizens exercising their constitutional right to protest. In Los Angeles, in Chicago, in Portland, cities guilty of the unforgivable crime of being governed by Democrats, federal troops have been unleashed not against foreign enemies but against Americans who dare to object to his immigration pogrom. A federal judge found these deployments violated the Posse Comitatus Act, that essential barrier between military force and civilian governance, but such legal niceties are mere inconveniences to a man who views the Constitution as a suggestion rather than a constraint. The president who claims to deserve the Nobel Peace Prize has, in his fevered imagination, transformed American cities into war zones, requiring military occupation. He speaks of an invasion from within, describing his own citizens as enemies more dangerous than foreign adversaries because they don't wear uniforms. This is not the language of a peacemaker, but of a despot, not the rhetoric of reconciliation, but of civil war. When European leaders gather to mock his geographical illiteracy, as they did when the Albanian Prime Minister joked with Macron about the imaginary Albania-Azerbaijan peace deal, they are not merely laughing at a verbal slip. They are witnessing the comprehensive intellectual and moral bankruptcy of American leadership, the reduction of superpower diplomacy to the level of a confidence trick performed by a man who cannot even keep his marks straight. The obsession with Obama's Nobel Prize reveals the psychological poverty at the heart of this sordid spectacle. Here is a man so consumed by envy of his predecessor that he has spent years publicly campaigning for an honor that, by its very nature, cannot be obtained through lobbying. The Norwegian Nobel Committee, whatever its faults, possesses sufficient dignity to resist such crude attempts at manipulation. As committee chair Jørgen Vatne Frydnes noted with admirable restraint, they have seen many types of campaign over the years, but their decisions rest on actual achievement rather than self-promotion. Trump's allies, Netanyahu, various Republican supplicants, even the families of hostages desperate for any leverage, have nominated him repeatedly, each nomination more embarrassing than the last. They praise his ending of wars that continue to rage, his resolution of conflicts that never existed, his peace agreements that remain unsigned. This is not diplomacy but delusion, not statesmanship but performance art executed by an amateur who has forgotten his lines. The comparison with Machado is particularly instructive. Here is a woman who risks her life daily, forced into hiding by an actual dictator, continuing to fight for democracy despite genuine mortal danger. She represents the authentic courage that the Nobel Peace Prize was created to honor. Trump, by contrast, plays at being a strongman from the safety of the White House, deploying troops against his own citizens while claiming to be a champion of peace. There is something almost Shakespearean in the image of this would-be laureate, confusing countries, inventing wars, and claiming credit for peace agreements that exist primarily in his imagination, all while ordering military force against peaceful protesters in American cities. But Shakespeare's tragic heroes possessed nobility in their delusion. King Lear, descending into madness, retained a certain grandeur. Trump, claiming to have ended a war between Armenia and Cambodia, achieves only bathos. The Nobel Peace Prize will never grace the mantelpiece of a man who militarizes domestic dissent, who confuses Albania with Armenia, who claims that phone calls of congratulation were actually transfers of honor. The prize belongs to those who risk everything for peace, not to those who risk nothing while claiming everything. It belongs to the Maria Corina Machados of the world, not to the fabulists who cannot even pronounce the names of the countries they claim to have saved. In the end, Trump's pursuit of the Nobel Prize serves as a perfect metaphor for his entire political career, a relentless campaign of self-aggrandizement built upon foundations of ignorance, sustained by delusion, and destined for the particularly American form of failure that consists of getting everything one wants, except the thing one actually needs. In this case, the legitimacy that can only come from genuine achievement rather than perpetual performance. The Peace Prize will continue to elude him, not because the committee is biased against conservatives or Americans or whatever persecution complex he deploys this week, but because peace cannot be won through intimidation, international respect cannot be demanded at gunpoint, and the Nobel Committee, unlike the debased institutions of American democracy, remains mercifully immune to his particular brand of authoritarian theater. History will record that in October 2025, the Nobel Peace Prize went to a woman of genuine courage, while a man who deployed troops against his own citizens raged about the injustice of it all. There is a certain poetic justice in that, though poetry, like geography, appears to be yet another discipline our would-be laureate has failed to master.